I just want to reiterate what Camille was saying. I do think that where Walz will be most vulnerable is not the military stuff, but rather his glaring 2020 record, because that will remind people, to the extent of which this is going to be discussed, and it will be, it will remind people of the very worst things that they remember in their own states, in their own lives about 2020, which was incredible authoritarianism in many states, particularly Democratic-run states. I mean, dystopian in Walz's case of having a tip line to rat out your neighbors for being insufficiently locked downish. Holy cow. It is like absolutely ineffectively dealing with and sending out crazy messages about the violence in the streets that happened after George Floyd. And that's literally his state. So people can remember that and the double standards that come with it. And then also along with the COVID stuff comes this really kind of hysterical anti-free speech element of using the patina, that's probably not how you pronounce that, of science.
Patina, that one we know.
Thank you. I'm just checking.
Today.
I'm giving Camille a chance to shine. But of saying, oh, you know, the science says that you're wrong and you need to have your speech suppressed. Everyone remembers those things. We had a guy call in on our Zoom call, monthly Zoom call with our listeners from Minnesota. He could barely get through the sentence. So still angry
he was fuming
at how Walz, in his words, destroyed his family, or COVID authoritarianism shut down his business, screwed up his kids. It's bad. And so, I mean, 2020 is this kind of PTSD thing in the American psyche, and Democrats still haven't learned the lesson about this at all. They haven't learned the lesson of why Glenn Youngkin is the governor of Virginia, which used to be a blue state. It was because of their horrid COVID governance. Walz is a poster child for that, along with Gretchen Whitmer and Gavin Newsom. And the fact that Kamala Harris felt like, well, I'm going to do a sop to the left rather than a sop to the majority of Americans who remember this and remember it really badly and don't require much to get angry all over again.
Here, your guy on the Fifth Column was not the only one. More and more Minnesotans are coming out to say, this guy destroyed my life during the COVID lockdowns with his overreaction, his panicked overreaction. And I do actually think this is all part of a theme, to be honest with you. It's like when the going got tough, he ran. He cut and ran on his Army National Guard team. When the going got tough in Minneapolis, he froze. He didn't send in the National Guard. Why? Because he thought there were a bunch of loser cooks who couldn't get the job done. Same unit, who went to Iraq and Afghanistan, as the ad points out, three of whom trained under him and were killed. Okay, but whatever, he froze. Then COVID came. He didn't see through the bullshit. He reacted in a panicked, fear-stricken way, shutting down businesses at the drop of a hat and then jailing his own citizens when they didn't comply with his orders, including a grandmother who is out there. This clip is making the rounds. She spoke to Fox Digital about what he did to her. Listen to this.
We're just law-abiding people like most Americans are. I went to court for the criminal charges and for the civil charges. There have been, I've incurred tens of thousands in court fees, in legal fees. There have been upwards near 100,000 levied against me in fines. This is a story that America needs to hear. That Tim Walz is not some cuddly, joyful coach like all the things that the MSMs are calling him, or some of the things that they're calling him. That is not who this man is. This man would like to take your rights away. He will take your rights away, because what happened to me could have happened to anybody. What happened to me will happen to you if we don't get things turned around in our country. While I was in jail, I missed out on Christmas with my family. I missed out on my wedding anniversary. And I also missed out on the birth of one of my grandchildren. So let America know, you do not want Tim Walz as vice president. You do not want tyranny at this level.
Just a little background on her, you guys. Her name is Lisa Hansen, mother of 8, grandmother of 18. She said beside a speeding ticket, she's always been a law-abiding citizen. She's the owner of Interchange Wine and Coffee Bistro outside of Minneapolis, opened around 2012, was eventually forced to close after being harassed by Tim Walz and jailed and subjected to very high legal fees. She initially complied with the shutdown order in March of 2020, but then she reopened in December of 2020, as so many Americans wrestled with, because this is how they pay their bills. This is how they live. She has a family to support. She reopened. And this is all, it's like March. She was closed for the better part of a year. December, she opens back up. And within 24 to 48 hours, she said, quote, "The state came down on us with a vengeance, eventually bringing about a half dozen civil and criminal cases against her. She was convicted in December 2021 on misdemeanor charges and served 60 days in jail." That's Tim Walz justice.
Yeah, I had not seen that before, and that is a very potent indictment, I think. And it's interesting. I can almost already hear like the defenses that some people would offer. Oh, it was a very uncertain time. They didn't know exactly where the threat was coming from or what to do. So a lot of decisions were made very quickly and in the heat of the moment. And sometimes those decisions weren't always great. The difficulty for Walz is that in his recounting of events or in his addressing his failures, he has been, so far as I'm concerned, insufficiently thoughtful and careful. He doesn't seem to express nearly enough regret. Someone talked to him about learning loss where children were concerned in his state. And the response was something like, well, what about all the people who died?
And he denied it. He denied learning loss. He rejected that.
He said that he learned Zoom. They learned Zoom. It was great.
And he, like Governor Cuomo, has defended this policy of putting people into nursing homes who were sick, and again, has defended those policies as reasonable. There were critics of those policies at the time. I think there's a great many things for people to be concerned about. And the fact that it was some years ago doesn't matter. It is certainly still fair game to have conversations about Donald Trump's conduct after January 6th. Democrats will do that. It will be a question during the debates. And in much the same way, so far as I'm concerned, there ought to be very serious and sober questions about Walz's conduct and whether or not it is something that ought to be taken into serious account when people are going to the ballot box.
But here's what you have instead. You have, he's folksy. He's the football coach. He's the teacher. He's your dad. He's your daddy, which is working with a certain segment of the population. I'll give you one example. Here is some gal named Pamela on TikTok.
He represents the dad that a lot of liberal women lost. A lot of us had moderate to conservative, educated, sensible fathers that we lost to Rush Limbaugh, that we lost to Fox News, that we lost to Donald Trump. And the cult of conservatism that has grown and grown and grown has driven a wedge between millennial women and her fathers. And seeing Tim Walz, seeing that he was an educated conservative that saw the party getting weird and changed his mind, shifted his mindset. He's just chill and normal and kind and sensible. He has empathy. He represents all of those qualities that were stripped away from my normal father by this cult. And it makes me sad to see him, because I think, what kind of person would my dad have been if he didn't fall victim to this nightmare?
Don't do this.
Oh my
Don't.
God.
Man, I'm on her dad's side.
100%.
If that was what I was dealing with, a crying person on TikTok talking about how Tim Walz is the second coming. Good Lord.
He's my daddy.
Yeah.
It's a fail.
By the way, this is a sort of, I mean, I always talk about this, of the kind of ideological dementia that kind of, takes over certain people at certain ages in their life. I just want to say, yesterday I had a conversation with somebody who, not somebody I know, not political, and said they've lost their mother to Rachel Maddow.
Oh, God.
It's bidirectional. I mean, people who get very political late in their life, it's an incredible thing that people think that
If your mom's still alive, you haven't lost her. In these crazy times, there is a peace of mind in security. Security for our country, for our leaders, and for our families. But think about this. You are not financially secure if all your eggs are in one basket. Gold and silver can be an excellent way to diversify your savings as a hedge against inflation. They're a physical asset that's in high demand globally. And through Birch Gold Group, you can own physical gold and silver in a tax-sheltered retirement account. Yes, you can diversify an old IRA or 401k for no money out of pocket into an IRA in gold and silver. Text MK to 989898 and receive a free no-obligation info kit and learn the role precious metals could play in your overall savings strategy. Again, text MK to 989898. Birch Gold has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of happy customers. Text MK to 989898. Message and data rates may apply. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.